In this video, we're going to look at Plasmodium malariae. Yes, it also causes malaria, and everyone talks about Plasmodium falciparum, and honestly, I understand why. It's the malaria parasite we hear about the most. It causes severe disease, it can reach very high parasitemia densities, and when you look at a blood film, it has some pretty distinctive features. But I've been going through the different malaria-causing parasites recently, Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum, and now I've arrived at Plasmodium malariae. And this one surprised me because P. malariae is almost like the quiet member of the family. It's there, it's doing its thing, and we probably haven't been paying enough attention. So let's look at it. First, how do you tell P. malariae from P. falciparum? If you're looking at a blood film, and a blood film is made either as a thick smear. The clinics like to look at both. A thick smear, because a thick smear will show you if the parasite is there, it will burst the red cells and release them. So you see them at these little granules, and if you have a look at this image, you see the rings of falciparum. But then a thin smear will let you really pay attention and see the different morphology and be able to distinguish between all the species that cause malaria. And so with P. malaria, you can get what's called a band form at the trophozoite stage. And I mean, it really looks like a little band stretching across the red cell. And in some cases, it even looks like a little basket. It's one of those malaria morphology features where once you've seen it, you think, oh, that's quite distinctive. Compare that with P. falciparum, where the parasites are often much smaller, and you may see those delicate ring forms in P. falciparum. Sometimes in P. falciparum, you see multiple parasites in a single red blood cell. And that's another difference. P. malaria generally doesn't enlarge the red blood cell. So if you're comparing it with P. vivax, where the infected red blood cells can become noticeably enlarged and stifled, P. malariae is much more understated. It's basically saying, I'm just going to stay in the red blood cell and mind my business. But then you get to the Schizont. And this is where P. malaria gets a little fancy. The merozoites can be arranged in a rosette or daisy-like pattern around a central clump of pigment. So we've gone from the parasite quietly wearing a band to suddenly arranging its merozoites like a little flower. And then there's another useful contrast with P. falciparum. The gametocytes of P. falciparum are famously crescent or banana-shaped. You've seen them. You see one of those and you immediately think, falciparum. P. malariae gametocytes, on the other hand, are generally round or oval. So it's giving a bit more like the vivax morphology. So morphologically, there are some really interesting clues. But here's where things get more complicated. Because P. malaria tends to occur at lower parasitemia densities than P. falciparum, and most infections are actually mixed infections, it's rare to have just P. malariae alone causing the malaria. So you may not always get this beautiful textbook blood film where everything is sitting there saying, hi, I'm P. malariae. You wouldn't necessarily just see the band form and notice it because it tends to be at very low parasitemia. There just isn't very much parasite there to see. And that's one of the reasons this parasite can be easy to overlook. P. malaria also causes much less of a severe case of malaria, but it can cause persistent infections that can stick around for a long time. It has been associated with serious complications, including anemia and kidney disease. And it turns out in some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, its prevalence may be much higher than we might expect. And so that kind of brings us to an interesting question as to what really happens once we start controlling falciparum. What will happen with malariae? Thank you so much for checking out the video. I really appreciate you subscribing to our study group and giving the video a thumbs up. And I'm looking forward to catching you in the next video. God bless. Bye.